do 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 do. Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm Agent of Doubt, and today we're going to talk about BetterHelp.com, the app that gives you access to affordable, low-cost, over-the-internet counseling, and we're also going to talk about this flood of YouTubers that in the past few months have been very, very depressed. They're thinking about quitting YouTube, they're quitting social media, they're getting burned out on YouTube, and all sorts of things. They're burned out with the topics that they were talking about before, and then they all of a sudden, plug BetterHelp.com. Because how do you segue into talking about an app that provides mental health services other than talking about mental health issues, right? So it's my belief, after experiencing this wave as a high consumer of YouTube myself, that I think that it's actually the sponsorship opportunity itself that has created this wave of depression that has hit YouTube, and it's depressing the people who are watching YouTube to see all of this depression, right? Depression spreads, and so in order to make this video, I watched a whole bunch of videos by a whole bunch of different YouTubers, including Boogie2988, Phillip Defranco, Gabbie, Hanna, Bobby Burns, Catrific, Trisha, Peytas, Katie, Morton, H3H3, Ash, Hardell, and Lucas, and Anna, Akana, Dyke, who happens to be my girlfriend's favorite YouTuber, not me, and Jaclyn, Glenn, Gibi, ASMR, and a couple of them, it seems like when people get into this sponsorship, there's also like a curious networking opportunity, because when they make their video about how they're so depressed, they talk about the other YouTubers that are also in the sponsorship. Not other YouTubers that have also had depression, but all other YouTubers who have also plugged BetterHelp. Like Shane Dawson, for example, he's plugging Katie Morgan, who already had a sponsorship deal with BetterHelp, and he, in some flashbacks, will show like Boogie2988. And then there's ElleOfTheMills, right? So she makes a video showing how horribly depressed she felt, right? And then she plugs BetterHelp for her video. And then a whole bunch of other YouTubers who've also plugged BetterHelp make videos about her, like, say, Phillip Defranco, right? And then she comes back and makes a follow-up video on her YouTube burnout video, and she shows clips of all those other people who talked about her. So there's this curious networking of people who are plugging BetterHelp, and it does stand out as like glaringly obvious to me, like there's something going on in the background here, that is connecting all of these YouTubers. And rather than talk about like the timing of BetterHelp hitting the sponsorship market with this great deal since June, and it's like blown up through July, August, and September of this year, I'm gonna say let's put that aside. That's probably the playground of a lot of conspiracy theory thought that could come out of me right now. And I'm going to talk about what is actually unethical, provably, about BetterHelp.com. And that is that they are engaging in dual relationships, right? And they're doing so with their paid word of mouth. And I've watched videos from other people who are critical of BetterHelp. Like they didn't like the sponsorship as they tried it, like Deschroma, a smaller YouTuber, and I've watched Memology 101's videos, I've watched Drummer 828's videos, but they're coming from it as from the aspect of like being a YouTuber or being a consumer of mental health products. I myself am a clinician, and I recognize, dual relationships, multiple relationships as an ethical concern right away with this app. And to be specific, the American Psychological Association, it puts out a code of ethics, and the codes that I am referring to are 3.08, 3.05, and 6.05 in tandem, okay? So it's an exploitative relationship that they are creating with their sponsors, or sponsees, right? And that's why you have to look at all of these ethical codes in tandem, because they shouldn't be bartering with these sponsees if they're exploiting them, and this is how they're exploiting them. In order to create the opportunity to talk about mental health, these YouTubers have been creating videos about their own depression, their own anxiety, their own mental health problems that they have gotten help from BetterHelp with. How did they get this help? Well, it was written into their sponsorship that they would get a free trial to try it out, right? So therefore, it becomes part of the payment in this sponsorship that they got the service in the first place, right? So this creates this dual relationship. That's the old terminology. It's multiple relationship. But I don't think a lot of you are going to get this right away, so I'm going to give you like a parallel example. I've actually seen someone fired for this. Let's say you have a practice and you have a client that it comes to see you, and then you try to sell them Girl Scout cookies because your daughter is in Girl Scout cookie season, right? Your client getting help from you all the time and seeing you as like the authoritative figure in that power dynamic in your office might feel pressured to buy your Girl Scout cookies in order to butter you up. It's going to change the counseling relationship, right? So you should not be selling Girl Scout cookies to your clients, right? Nor should you be selling Avon, nor should your receptionist be offering people Girl Scout cookies, Boy Scout popcorn, or Avon in the waiting area when people are waiting to see you, because they will feel an additional pressure that results from their clinical relationship to you. So that's the easiest example I have of multiple relationships being unethical, right? But also there are things like you shouldn't be giving therapy to your family because you have that additional relationship of being a family member to them. You shouldn't be giving therapy to people who might be able to get you a better interest rate on a home loan because they are your banker, you know. And there are exceptions to this that the APA would allow for, such as very extremely small towns in remote areas in like Alaska where everybody knows everybody. You know, they're going to say, well, we're going to make a little allowance for this. But in this case, I don't think that any allowance can be made. This is completely unethical because they are creating this segue into a pitch for their product with this free trial sponsorship, and they're exploiting this marketing idea that is as old in my life as Hair Club for Men, when the guy comes out and says, "I'm not only the president, I'm a client, right? It's creating fake word of mouth, right? It wasn't like these people had a problem and then came to them for therapy, and then they offered them a sponsorship. These people were offered a sponsorship and then were offered therapy to create this situation where they're not just a sponsee, they are a client, and so you can trust their opinion on this product even more, but they're being paid, so how can you trust their judgment when they're being paid to say this? This is just, it is very unethical. I've given you the spots in the APA ethical guidelines to look it up. I will, however, address some of the other critiques that I've heard about BetterHelp, one of which is that they don't allow bad reviews on their website, and also that they have horrible reviews all over the rest of the internet. Well, this is nothing new to me that a mental health facility would have horrible reviews, right? And in fact, in the metro area that I live in, I've actually looked up Google reviews on every different mental health place just to get a laugh. Because, I've been to these places, professionally. I've visited a lot of them. And what is being said in these reviews is nothing like what I understand would happen in these places, right? They make them out to be like dungeons, filled with torture, right? And so I recognize that disgruntled ex-clients that have mental health problems will leave a bad review. It's just going to happen. And some of them are going to be hilariously over the top, and I just expect that. So the fact that they have bad reviews all over the internet, I don't see that as something surprising. Also, the fact that they don't allow testimonials on their website in a way that the testimonials aren't vetted, of course not, because people would just flood their website with bad reviews, and then, who puts out an advertising tool with bad reviews about themselves? It makes sense to me that they would only put out vetted testimonial, and also they would vet it in order to keep people from breaking their own confidentiality, because if you felt like you were wronged by someone, and the only way that you could warn other people would be to out yourself, that's kind of a bad thing. But also, how do they vet for people who are just, say, competition, leaving bad reviews in order to pimp their own web service of online therapy, because wars like that happen on the internet. Yelp wars and review wars happen on the internet. I've seen it. Longtime viewers of my channel will remember when certain people had their Google reviews and Yelp reviews just slammed over fights online about ideology and whatnot. And they're protecting themselves from that as best they can. Another thing that I've heard from some of the people who don't have a clinical perspective on this is that there are a lot of posts about similar outcomes regarding the termination of therapy and getting referrals when they use BetterHelp, and especially when they take the BetterHelp questionnaire and they answer in such a way that it's scored that they have too many signs of major depression or major anxiety for BetterHelp to be able to help them, right? And so they think that this is some sort of scam, that BetterHelp only helps people that think they have depression but don't. and anyone who has real depression, they just pawn off onto somebody that they refer them to, for face-to-face stuff, and they feel rejected, But this is not outside of the industry norm that a service will not offer. They will not offer treatment to things that are outside of their scope. And my best example, me being an addiction counselor, would be if somebody was going through horrible withdrawal from, say, alcohol and benzos, and I knew that there was a possibility that they could have like a seizure or die if they just keep talking to me in my office about their problems, I would refer them to the emergency room or a medical detox, right? And I would refer them to the level of care that they need. Same thing if they were to start talking about wanting to commit suicide. That is outside of my scope of practice. So I would try to keep them there, keep them safe, while still alerting other people that were trained in handling suicidal ideation. Maybe if I'm in a place with nurses on hand or doctors on hand, I would alert them. Also, like mobile crisis units, maybe I might lead them to call a suicide hotline in front of me. Like I might help them through that process. But I'm not going to try to treat them for something that I'm not licensed to treat. And there are levels to this thing, to borrow a phrase here. There are levels to this. And so the ASAM levels are, in addiction practice, the severity of the client's condition is taken into account, and then you refer them to the appropriate level of treatment, right? And a lot of places won't accept billing for treatment that is not the appropriate level of treatment. Like the insurance might not pay out if the client was clearly needing a different kind of treatment, a different level of treatment. So the fact that they're unwilling to treat certain things, like major depressive disorder or major anxiety, it's just probably that it's that hard outside of a residential inpatient clinical setting to treat that stuff, that it's just not the appropriate level of care. So they're giving the proper response, which is often very similar to each other's testimonials when they come out with their messages that referred them to seek some face-to-face therapy. It's completely the appropriate response. In fact, I think that some of those referrals should have been a little bit more specific. I think not just telling them to Google it or seek face-to-face. I think they should have given them specific referrals in their area to clinicians, because that's kind of the standard for as far as ethical guidelines go. But they've already broken a few ethical guidelines by trying to be innovative online with the way that they promote themselves. So the last thing I want to talk about is that I actually a while back looked into BetterHelp as like a possible career avenue for myself as a clinician. And what I found was they are not yet ready to accept licensed addiction counselors. They only take certain fields in behavioral health as their clinicians. They were taking LCSWs, they were taking LMFTs and LPCs, but they were not taking LACs at the time. But they might expand. State to state, they have different requirements, and I think that they're matching people to clinicians within the state that they're in because of the different licensing requirements. But as it stands right now, not only do I not like the exploitative nature of their marketing, I don't like the level of pay that they are generating with their service, because some of the clinicians have come out and talked about what kind of pay they're getting, and it's around $15 an hour right now, as far as I can see with Google searches, and I make a lot more than that right now doing face-to-face work, and it's not worth it to me to go down to $15 an hour just to not have a commute. I'll just enjoy listening to the radio on my way to work and get paid, for all of the work that I put into getting all of these licenses and credentials and degrees. I don't want to work for peanuts. And just to put this in perspective, a lot of politicians are calling for the minimum wage to be raised to $15 an hour. And I just heard today that Jeff Bezos from Amazon put out that as of November 1st, all Amazon employees are going to be making $15 an hour as a minimum. That's including their stockers and their packers and their pickers, right? And these are people that are completely unskilled labor, not with a degree or a license or not. And to see them making the same amount of money that somebody doing counseling online would be making after that person worked so hard to get that degree and that credential, I'm just not down with that. Of course, I think it's okay to want to get paid. Of course, you feel like giving back to the community, and sometimes people make exceptions for working for nonprofits that can't really afford very high salaries because it's rewarding to them. But when the pay gets driven down by the gig economy, certain aspects of the lifestyle that you would want to be accustomed to as a clinician start to be removed. When I look at that pay and then how they're contractors and they don't get things like health insurance through their company, or the other perks that they might be able to receive, like matching 401k contributions and whatnot. When I look at that, I'm like, I make twice what a BetterHelp counselor makes. And I don't even have their level of credentials yet, and so why would I work hard to get those credentials just to get paid less? And then you get what you pay for in life, and so to see that this is a place where a lot of people who are working for that low pay are congregating, I'm thinking, well, this is an option for people who can't make it in larger clinics, in places where they might be able to get better pay. These are people who, for some reason, cannot deal with places where they would have more competition, and so they're taking the Uber and Lyft route and joining the gig economy and just selling their services to people for a very low rate. What happened when Uber and Lyft came to all of the people who were making good money as cab drivers? So I don't think that I want to be associated with them in the future until a lot of this changes. I have hope that they will look into how they have been exploiting the sponsorship relationship with the people that they are counseling, and I have hope that they will raise the level of pay past what many people feel should be the minimum wage. And maybe in the future that might be, a viable thing for me to do, because, I'm really good on camera with people as far as being able to communicate. So I wish them well, but at the same time, what they're doing, I feel like is creating a very bad precedent. And somebody does have to speak out about it and point out that this is unethical, and we have reasons for these ethics to be in place.